what does organic really mean? And of course, this is kind of lowest common denominator of what organics has become. And so it doesn't necessarily mean all that much. In its highest incarnation, it means a whole lot, but there's a really vast disparity of practices that are all kind of labeled as organic. And so I thought, I want to grow my own food.
I want to introduce Stephen Wynbrandth, who's the founder of Wynbrandth Farms, established in 2009. It's a micro farm that has become a one-of-a-kind gem of urban agriculture in Los Angeles. What got you started in composting? What inspired you, and what has the journey been like from that beginning to where you are now?
I wanted to work with my hands and create something, and I was standing in the kitchen, looking out the kitchen window to this backyard that I grew up archaeological digging and kicking soccer balls and having parties. And I wanted to make it productive. I wanted to transform it. And I would tell the story for many years that I decided for every reason under the sun that I wanted to grow food. And I did decide that, but really I wanted to see if I could make money off the backyard. I wanted to see if I could, and then I thought growing stuff. And in the years prior, shopping, even at farmers markets, sometimes like the people who were growing it weren't necessarily the ones selling it. And I didn't really know what questions to ask. What does organic really mean? And of course, this is kind of lowest common denominator of what organics has become. And so it doesn't necessarily mean all that much. In its highest incarnation, it means a whole lot, but there's a really vast disparity of practices that are all kind of labeled as organic. And so I thought, I want to grow my own food.
What is that mission or that vision or that purpose, that you've alluded to a couple of times, and how did it, where did it come from, and how did you develop such strong conviction around it?
All these beds that I just put all my blood and sweat and tears and spirit into. And at that moment, I knew that that's what I was going to do. And over that next year, I made over 100,000 pounds of compost in this backyard in West LA. That's tens of thousands of pounds of cow manure and dozens of bales of alfalfa. It's going down in the history of the city, whether it's ever a really famous story or not, it's monumental. And it is outlined in an article in the LA Times in 2012 called The King of Compost. So that began my professional journey making compost. And so from the beginning, I understood that really what we are doing as beyond organic farmers is we are growing soil. And the single best way to do that is to make compost, microbially diverse, alive compost we can make for the living skin of the earth's optimal nutrition. And the intention and attention and skill and dedication that we put into the compost, those results show in how the food grows and the health of the soil.
What was that shift like for you, and the importance of doing that, of walking it back a layer deeper to the soil, and taking it to that from the original intention of the food?
I will say that I did from the beginning with my first mentor, Michael, have that awareness because I made all this compost. I made I think it was 20,000 pounds of compost before I ever even grew food. So I knew then that I needed it. And as my journey deepened, and when I met Jack, this whole other dimension opened up. I was really attracted to and saw so much value and worth and importance.
How are we taking all these different things that might not even be considered useful, and transforming it into something that is so desirable, that is so high-end, that is so potent and nourishing?
System and program that I've created for organizations such as schools, and I'm starting with schools because there's such an extraordinary multidisciplinary educational component, to compost all of their food waste on campus, on site. And there's nothing like it being done currently that I know of. And so there's even the term waste in there. So to back up in my career, when I'm making it with these other ingredients, dairy cows, and there's a market for alfalfa hay as a very nutritious feed for animals. And I am taking it, I'm buying it, I'm essentially commissioning a farmer to grow me a compost crop to put as an ingredient, as a feedstock in my compost to make extraordinary compost. And so there are all these ingredients. All organic matter is potentially an ingredient of compost.
How to get over the hump of relating with our trash and our waste in a way that's actually fruitful in the way that you're describing. How do we shift our desires to get that waste product away or just have the convenience of the outcome to really being engaged in the process of ongoing transformation?
I think for like some of the deepest and most important questions that we need to be asking ourselves and our communities and our society about this time that we're in and where we're headed and what our vision is to live in a way that will enable humanity to thrive more. When we make compost well, when we make it as a high art, it really profound product of alchemy that holds answers to some of the most critical issues that humanity faces, from climate change to restoring and elevating the health and well-being of humanity. With all of these open loops, when we're making compost, when we're transforming waste, we are closing the loop on our waste and we are taking responsibility for it.
How do we not fall back into that trap, right? And what are steps that we can take to actually be active participants towards a more regenerative society?
Is this program and system that I've developed to compost thousands of pounds of food waste on the site of organizations, of these schools and synagogues and churches and companies. And this is for organizations, groups of people that make thousands or tens of thousands of pounds of waste annually. I see this as a key piece to creating more resilient, sustainable communities and cities and a society. This is my next mission and gift and purpose for what I believe needs to be done, the change that we need to see in the world. Probably the easiest of all the things that we need to look at is closing the loop on our waste. And so how does that look in our society, and how much differently do we need to run our society and consume and not consume for these changes to take place? Because ultimately where I'm getting at is that I don't think, and from all the evidence that I see and research that I read, that our way of life is sustainable.